Welcome back. So in this video, we're going to learn about a few more HTML elements that are pretty common. So we've seen how to write comments, we've seen head, we've seen body, we've seen doc type as well as HTML and the H1 tag. Now we're going to learn about a bunch more things that can go in the body. So if you take a look at the MDN Element Reference, and the link is in the description down below, or you could just get there by Googling MDN Element Reference, you will see that this is basically a web page that lists all the elements in HTML. Now, some people are surprised at how many there are, while others are surprised at how few there are. Now, they're around, and this is just a wild guess, I haven't really counted, but they're around 100 or so. And this page has all of them, and you can read about every single one. So for example, we could search for body, and we could read about body, which we've already done. But what I want to show you is that there's a ton here, and there's probably 10 or 15 that you'll use all the time. Now there's a lot of things here, so don't feel like you have to know all of them. This is one of those times I'm going to tell you it's not about memorization. All right, so let's go back to our H1 and let's do a little bit of reading about H1s. So I'm just going to search on here H1, click the corresponding link. Basically, an H1 down to an H6 are the 6 levels of document headings. So an H1 is going to be the most important heading on your page. It's the largest heading. And the H6, it's still a heading, but it's going to be the least important heading. So you can see there's an example here, H1, H2, H3, all the way down to H6. And this is the result in HTML. So here's another example. We've got an H1 and some other tags, and we end up with something like this. We'll go ahead and make a few more heading elements. So we'll do an H3. We won't do all of them. We'll do one more. So let's change this to an H6 so you can see how small they get. Let's save it. Go ahead and open the page again. And you can see we have a large heading, a slightly smaller heading, and then this absolute small heading that we can go. So another thing about H1s and other headings is that they're sometimes called block level elements. So what that means is that each one gets its own line. So even if I put all of them in the same line and I refresh the page, you see that every one of them gets their separate line and pushes everything else after it to a new line. So this is important because there are going to be other elements that do not behave this way, and those are called inline elements. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. Let's go ahead and add some text here. On this side, I just want to be regular text. I don't want it to be big or highlighted or anything. So I could just write text like this. Going to add a bunch more. I save and refresh the page. And I get this giant text on one line. But let's say that I realize I actually want a line break right here. To do that, I can use paragraph tags. You'll see that the P tag just represents a paragraph of text. And paragraphs are block level elements, so that means they also go on their own line. So let's add a paragraph in here. All right, so I want to split it here and here. So I'll just wrap this in the paragraph tag like so. And then I'll add another paragraph in front of this. And afterwards, there we go. Make sure we save that and then we refresh. And now we have two paragraphs that are on separate lines. So let's just pull up a bunch of lorem ipsum text here and copy this over. So you can see I have something longer, not just one line. And then you can see now we have a paragraph with spaces after it and before the next paragraph. So now that I have my paragraph here, let's suppose I want to make some text stand out. I want to italize the title of a book, or I want to bold keywords, for instance. So there are ways of doing that with HTML, and I'll show you one here. Now let's say I want to make simply dummy text bolded here. So to do that, I could write a B tag around it, But as I mentioned before, this is not actually the best way of doing it anymore, but I'm just going to show you it here briefly so you can see it. So I refresh the page, and as you can see, Simply Dummy text is now bolded. Now, most importantly, or equally importantly, it doesn't take up a new line. It's still in line. So there's something called block level elements, which we've talked about. These are the ones that take up their own block level. So for example, this paragraph tag here takes up its own block level. So that's a block level element. And also we have these ones that are called inline elements. And these are the ones that just slip in and won't actually force something down to a new line. So if we go back, I did say that this is not the best way of doing it anymore. We're going to talk about that in a future video about semantic markup. So basically in HTML5, your HTML needs to be meaningful. So if I simply say something is bold, it doesn't really say anything about the text. So rather, there are a few options. The most common one to use is strong. And so strong has a little bit more meaning. It will do the exact same thing. You will not notice the difference here. But the idea is that by saying that this is strong rather than bold, that means something a little bit more. So you'll see in a future video what semantic markup is all about and what HTML5 is trying to do. But for now, just note that those are the two ways of making something bold. Now, likewise, there are a few ways of italicizing some text. So if I want to italize lorem ipsum, I could use the I tag. You can see I've italicized lorem ipsum there. But a better way of doing it is actually using the EM tag, which is for emphasis. And it looks the exact same way, but the idea here again is that emphasis means something more than just saying I. And this is what HTML5 did. We want to separate our styling from our structure. So by saying something is italicized or bold, that's actually the styling of it. But by saying something is stronger or something is emphasized, that's not how it's styled or how it looks, but that's more about the structure of it and what it means. So in summary, we've got H1 to H6. These are block level elements. We've got paragraphs, which are also block level elements. These take up their own line. And then we got strong and EM or emphasis. And these are inline elements that lets us bold or italize things. But really with what they let us do is call something out for being strong or being emphasized, and our browsers just decides to make it italicized or bolded.